Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody that's live. Hello, everybody that's watching the video. You're really very welcome, whether it's in the morning, in the evening, or in the afternoon. You are very, very welcome on today, which is World Intellectual Property Day, the 26th of April. Welcome to the webinar. Welcome to the masterclass. You've joined the Joy of Books, the busy person's guide to reading for pleasure and mental wellness. I'm Christopher Norris. I'm the pioneer of World Book Day in the UK, which was about 30 years ago now. I persuaded the UK book trade to celebrate the UNESCO Awareness Day, which happens on the 23rd of April every year. And I'm also the founder of Jolabokaflod CIC, which is a not-for-profit company, social enterprise that promotes the Icelandic tradition, the Christmas book flood, Jólabókaflóðið. I'll get into that in more detail later on in the session. So this is what we're going to cover. I'm going to talk about some research regarding reading for pleasure stats. We're going to talk about the reading personalities that some of you will have done the quiz, which I'll put on the screen in a minute. In fact, I'll put it on now. So if you haven't yet taken the startup quiz, oops, that's the wrong one. Yeah, I'll put the quiz in the comments afterwards. If you haven't taken the quiz, then we can you can take the quiz afterwards retrospectively and then get the reports about your persona. But again, I'll talk about that later in the presentation. So what are the aspects of your reading personality and the your curiosity around that? What are the problems and the issues that you face when you're trying to read more? What are the benefits of reading? How can you address those challenges? And some calls to action at the end of the talk, which you can get involved with if you feel inspired by what I've had to say. So let's get on with the session. So if you want to, these are some of the things that that you might be feeling that you would like to address by being part of this webinar. If you would like to rediscover your joy in reading, to feel smarter and more accomplished, to reduce your daily stress and anxiety, and to build more meaningful personal habits in terms of your mental well-being and cognitive health, to boost your self-esteem, to join a global reading movement, my Jólabókaflóðið movement, to experience more emotional richness and empathy, to replace your scrolling and screen fatigue with our online world with the enjoyment of reading a book, to get a more compelling sense of having autonomy in your life by learning things in books that you can then put into action in your day-to-day life, and to feel more energized and creative. Then if you're feeling any or all of those things, you are in the right place at this webinar. So let's look at some research to start with. There are some slides which come after this, which show you a survey that's been done in America recently. The research was conducted in February, and the report was published in April, and it's all about Americans' attitudes to reading books. So the first thing to say is that reading is aspirational. People said that they would like to read more, and they were asked a series of questions about their attitudes towards reading in a variety of situations, and these are people who were readers that got asked, and also people who were just a control group who weren't particularly interested in reading, but these were their attitudes as well. And the truth is that everybody consumes a range of media, different types of things. So they might be watching Netflix, or they might be using social media or their phones, engaging with YouTube or TikTok, those kind of things. And reading books is one of those options. And everybody said that other activities get in the way of them reading. So they were asked which of the following activities were reasons why they don't read more. And people could select more than one answer. And there are some of the the answers they came up with, particularly things like not having enough time, pressure of work, other forms of entertainment, get distracted, finding time reading, maybe finding books that are of interest to them, those kind of things. And then finally, these are the genres that people said that they did enjoy reading when they actually get to read. And by far and away, the most popular was the thriller, crime, mystery genre, followed by historical non-fiction, memoir, historical fiction. Interestingly, romance is kind of quite a long way down that list, which is interesting. That probably says more about the sample size, in that the readers that they probably engaged with were maybe kind of put them in a bucket, nerds, let's say, who are into science fiction and dystopian fiction, things like that. So some of these may be a bit skewed, but the big ones are crime fiction and romance is a big one as well. And it looks like science fiction. Maybe there's the one of the genres that people talk about these days is romantasy, which is a mixture of romance and fantasy. So maybe that's picked up in the survey. So many of you will have done the quiz to find out your reading persona, the blueprint report, and printed it out. And there are 4 categories that are identified as reading personas. So at one end of the scale, you can be a casual reader, which is occasional light readers. Maybe you read when you have time. Literary connoisseurs who are driven by quality and being reflective. They're quite often interested in classics. Bibliophiles who collect books and would describe themselves as book lovers. And then there are the book dragons who are, would describe themselves as being devouring books or hoarding books and being highly analytical about the books that they read. So let's go into a bit more detail. Okay, so the first thing is what are the 4 reading types? So I'd be really interested if those of you who are in the audience would be able to type in the comments, let me know which reading type you came out as when you did the quiz. Are you a casual reader? Maybe put a 1 in the comment. If you're a literary connoisseur, put a 2 in the comment. If you're a bibliophile, write down 3. And if you're a book dragon, then write down 4. So it's that's really interesting. That I can see a range of different responses there. Quite a lot of 1s, quite a lot of 3s actually, and keep them coming. And the occasional 4. So there are some people out there who are really voracious about their reading. Okay. So here are some a bit more detail. These are essentially 4 slides. The next 4 slides are a summary of the report that you'll have received when you signed up to come to the webinar. So the casual reader, their traits are that they enjoy books, but it's not really the main thing going on in their lives. They've got lots of hobbies. Maybe they're active. Maybe they may be going outdoors. They've got other interests, and they don't make it a kind of daily activity. They often choose books based on recommendations by friends, or maybe they've seen a celebrity who's recommended something. And you talk about books, but it's not something that you generally talk about or make a conscious decision to have a conversation about a book. It's just maybe, if something's in the zeitgeist. I mean, for example, back in the day, the Twilight books or the Harry Potter books and things would get conversations going among people who weren't generally, interested in having those conversations. You like books which are easy to get into, maybe page turners, maybe they're trending novels or a bestseller or a classic. and the bookshelf that you have is fairly minimal, but it's meaningful. It's full of books that you've had strong connections to, or maybe it triggers a memory in you. And the kind of genres you like are contemporary fiction, romance, thrillers, memoirs, those kind of things. You like physical books, but you're open to other media as well. And you'll read in coffee shops, parks, or maybe just curl up with a book at home on a lazy Sunday. But it can take you ages to read a book, so you might spend a couple of months reading a book unless it really gets into your system and hooks you. So you don't really participate in book clubs or online communities, but you do like, occasional conversations about things. But you would like to read more, but you're just, too indisciplined, or you've got too many other interests to really commit to do that on a more organized basis. By all means, take a screenshot if you'd like to keep a record of the casual reader persona. The next one up is literary connoisseur. These are people who appreciate literature as an art form. They're often driven to particular narratives or themes. They've got a love of classic literature. They maybe go for award-winning novels or thought-provoking reads. They enjoy book clubs and sort of author interviews. But they go for things for the intellectual reasons and to get emotional engagement rather than to go there for entertainment. They're into literary fiction, particularly the classics, and kind of academic subjects like philosophy and poetry, and particularly memoirs of famous people. They tend to prefer the physical books, but they can enjoy ebooks for portability. They like literary engagement and book clubs. They read extensively, but they can find it difficult to find new books. That they have got work commitments, so sometimes you'll struggle to find uninterrupted reading time. You maybe should think about finding other books by the people that you enjoy reading that perhaps are a bit off-piste, a bit off the beaten track, and try and find environments or discussion groups and things where people can talk about your favorite authors or your favorite books in a more formal setting. Maybe try and read something outside your usual areas so that you can explore new ideas and add some more strings to your bow when it comes to reading books, and feel as though you're getting out of a rut the people that you do actually read as authors. So again, please take a screenshot if you're interested in being more aware of what literary connoisseurs are like as readers. So the next on the list, a bit further up the enthusiasm rankings. These are the bibliophiles. These are people who don't just love books; they collect them. They have a to be read list that always seems to be on the rise, on the increase. They spend loads of time in bookshops and libraries. They recommend books. They have lots of conversations. They might even keep a journal of what they're reading. They love to have a cozy library filled with books of all sorts of different genres, and they read voraciously across different genres. They love non-fiction. They love fantasy. They like annotating books, maybe even putting things in margins or putting reviews on sites like Amazon or Goodreads, and they like participating in communities. They'll even, if they love a particular author, they'll be very completist about things, and they'll get every single edition of a particular book, maybe even the audio books and ebooks, just so they can say that they've got every single item that is in a particular range or format for that particular book or that particular author. So they take part in book clubs online and in person. They follow people who are sort of book influencers on social media, the booktubers, the book talkers, and also literary Instagram accounts as well, especially when they're looking for recommendations about what to read next. They reread favorites. They say to themselves that a great book needs to be or deserves to be reread, and they buy books faster than they can read them, but they wouldn't have it any other way. They keep buying books even when they've got unread ones at home, and they find it challenging sometimes to read as much as they would like to. But maybe they do stick to their comfort zone in terms of genre, maybe a bit. So maybe it would be good for them to be a bit more adventurous when it comes to choosing their next reads. So some tips: hunt for some hidden gems, engage in more book conversations, and try out some book-related experiences. Maybe going to some author signings or literary festivals or some kind of tour. And maybe on occasion, go for a kind of lucky dip type approach and pick a book just based on, the fact that you've not heard of the author, or you just like the cover, or but don't read the synopsis, and maybe hopefully you'll get surprised by something that you might consider, but you might not otherwise consider as a book that you'd enjoy. And so lastly, the book dragons. These are people who are, very, very obsessive about reading. They've always got a book with them, whether it's a digital book, a physical book, or an audio book. And yet they still buy more books. They thrive on discussions, literary analysis. They get into all the minutiae and the details of fans. Maybe you're on a Reddit thread, those kind of things. You love rereading your favorite books, analyzing things, and going into great detail about book lore. You do loads of research around the books. You've often got lots of books on the go at once, and you track your reading goals. So you're very, very disciplined and rigorous about how you read and how you monitor your reading. So you devour books rapidly. You like immersing yourself in the world. You read everything from non-fiction, epic fantasy. You love analyzing books, sometimes even writing fan fiction or essays about them. So in terms of your genres, you like fantasy, sci-fi, historical fiction, dark academia, literary horror, those kind of things. You also read a lot of non-fiction as well, particularly if it's on esoteric subjects or on particular passions of yours that you have a deep interest in. You curate your list. You often read books that have won prizes or been mentioned in literary blogs that you follow, or deep dive recommendations from some quite drilling down quite a lot into blogs that you read, or deep corners of the internet. You'd have a home library. You like independent bookshops. You like cafes. But you like going to places where there's kind of minimal distractions because you're too busy reading. You've often got lots of books on the go. You reread favorite books, voraciously and many times. You're passionate about discussions. You join all kinds of forums online and in person. You write book reviews on blogs. Maybe you've got your own website, or maybe you are one of these influencers that is on BookTube or on BookTok, or maybe an Instagram person talking about your experiences of reading, and you have followers who are kind of tuned in to how you think about reading and your own particular favorites. You've got a massive to-be read list. You buy books faster than you can read them, which is a challenge. Maybe you could make more time for non-fiction as well. And maybe you find it tricky to find people who've got your particular tastes in reading to have those conversations with, so it can be a bit isolating. Some tips, try looking out for undiscovered people. Maybe go into the thrill of the chase when it comes to finding somebody that nobody else yet knows about, so you can be an authority on that particular author. Go for rare special editions, and try and find places where you can have these discussions about the books that you love. And they maybe as an action point, maybe set yourself an artificial limit to actually say that you are not going to buy any more books until you've actually reduced your to-be-read pile significantly. So what are the pains and what are the problems? So as I was saying, the casual reader often says that they lack time and motivation. A literary connoisseur feels that they need deeper community and challenges when it comes to the range of things that they're reading. A bibliophile will often complain that they've got that they're overwhelmed by the books that they feel that they need to read, so they see themselves as being time poor. Book dragons often find it hard to strike a balance between reading and what else is going on in their lives, and to perhaps have a deeper engagement socially with other people, so that they can find more community in terms of their enthusiasms and get more a better work life book reading balance. So maybe in the chat you could share some of your own reading challenges and put those in the chat, and then I'll have a look at those in due course. So this slide's interesting in that one of the distractions that people talk about is the idea that people would like to read more, but they spend a lot of time on social media. So for example, the icons at the bottom of this stand, you've got Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, X or Twitter, and TikTok. And essentially, this is the time that people spend in a year on those particular reading platforms. And what this particular display is showing you is that if you didn't spend that time on those social media platforms, those are the number of books that you could have read in a year that you didn't, because you were actually, engaging with people on those particular social media platforms. So it looks like, in terms of time commitment, looks like TikTok and YouTube are the big ones, with Instagram, close behind in third place. Looks like Twitter isn't particularly a place where people talk about books by the look of it. So here's a graph that shows the level of enthusiasm for books. So at one end you've got non-readers, and then going up through the graph you've got casual readers, literary connoisseurs, bibliophiles, and book dragons. And this eureka picture is simply because often we can get our best ideas, or some of our best ideas, by engaging with books and feeling as though suddenly we have a breakthrough because the author that we're engaging with through the book has actually expressed an idea in a way that we've not actually come across before. So we can actually feel a kind of dopamine hit or a sense of joy if we've actually learned something new by reading the book. So here are some global inspirations for these particular masterclasses and these particular this campaign to try and get people to read for pleasure more than they do at the moment. So we've got World Book and Copyright Day, which I mentioned at the beginning, which is a UNESCO Awareness Day, and it happens on the April the 23rd every year. And the reason that it became a UNESCO Awareness Day is because of the fact that the Secretary General in the early 90s was actually somebody that was a native of Barcelona in Spain. And one of the festivals that they have in Barcelona every year on the April the 23rd is St. George's Festival, or San Jordi's Festival in Spanish. And that is a festival which is a bit like the equivalent of Valentine's Day, where everybody gets roses and books, and there's this big festival around reading and engaging with books and learning more about the culture. And the Secretary General of UNESCO at the time thought, wouldn't it be great if we could recognize that date as being something that the whole world can celebrate. And in terms of it being a date which is fixed in history as being anniversaries of famous writers, famously William Shakespeare is supposed to have been born and died on 23rd of April. Cervantes, who wrote Don Quixote, which is the seminal text in Spanish, he had an anniversary on that date. And there are various other people too. There's Vladimir Nabokov, the Russian-American guy who wrote Lolita, has an anniversary on that day, as does Halldór Laxness, who was an Icelandic writer who won the Nobel Prize for Fiction back in 1958. And also, although it's not on, because the UK decided to do it on a different day, every first Tuesday in March in the UK, there is a celebration of World Book Day for kids in schools, where one of the things that happens, as you can see from the picture, is that children get dressed up in fancy dress as their favourite literary characters. And one of the things that I'm involved with, particularly with this particular company, with Jólabokaflóðið, is the Icelandic tradition of Jólabókaflóðið, or the Jólabókaflóðið, which translates as Christmas book flood. And essentially what happens there is, because Iceland doesn't have many trees, it's kind of full of volcanoes and glaciers and beautiful countryside. Not many people, not many trees. So what they do, because Iceland is a place where loads of people read, and they have been a very literate culture for 1,000 years, is that they have to import all their paper. They don't tax the paper, and particularly when it started in the Second World War, paper wasn't taxed because they knew that people would need to read and they'd need to have some kind of leisure activity that they could do when everything was shut down because of the war. Iceland gets its independence from Denmark at the end of the Second World War, and they start this tradition, Jólabokaflóðið, of sending out a catalogue in print to everybody in the country, which is full of all the books that people might like to buy, which are new books for that year. And the interesting thing about the Icelandic language is that there's only about maybe 500,000 to 1 million native speakers of Icelandic language in the whole world. So a bestseller in the Icelandic language is probably only about sort of 7,000 or 8,000 copies. So if you publish a new book in Icelandic, then the likelihood is that it's not going to be available for purchase, because it won't go after that particular year, because it's not going to go into a second reprint or even into a new edition. So you'd need to go to the library if you wanted to find that particular title in a different year. So visits to the library in Iceland are actually very high as well. So what happens is that all these books, which are new, about 800 a year, get printed into a catalogue, a bit like some of these Christmas catalogues that you get in bookshops around the world around Christmas time. And those catalogues are used as the basis of a conversation to try and get people to decide what books to buy each other, family members, friends, as Christmas presents. And this is like a big, conversation piece. And then in Iceland, they celebrate Christmas on Christmas Eve. They have the big sort of set piece Christmas meal, and then immediately after the meal on Christmas Eve, they will then open their presents. And then, because everybody's received a book or many books, they'll spend the rest of Christmas Eve reading those books. And then later on in the holiday season, people will be asked, how are you getting on with your new book? So the brilliant thing is that Jólabókaflóðið is a trade campaign, it's a reading campaign, and it's also a mentoring scheme. So that's why, as somebody that was the pioneer of World Book Day in the UK, I got very excited about promoting Jólabókaflóðið as an opportunity for people to engage in celebrating Christmas in a different way when it comes to choosing books as gifts, and to encourage people to read those books over the Christmas period. And I'll get into more details about how you can engage with Jólabókaflóðið later in this talk. So, what are the benefits and the results of reading? So, essentially, from a mental point of view, it gives you focus. You can get relief from stress, and it's good for your thinking skills and being able to reason. From a spiritual point of view, you can feel as though you're able to learn more about yourself and your purpose in life, and feel as though you're growing as a person, in terms of your personal attributes. And from a physical point of view, it's a great way to relax. It improves the quality of your sleep, and it calms you down, reducing your levels of anxiety. So essentially, reading transforms your life, personally and professionally. So here's some research that kind of backs this up. This particular report was commissioned in April or published in April of this year, a few weeks ago. This one's from the Book Trust, which is a charity in the UK, which is promoting reading for children, particularly. And this particular report was all about the well-being benefits of reading for children, and they had a series of pages in this report that you could see from the headings and the numbers. I'm going to show you a couple of these slides, and just to say that everything that is mentioned in terms of how it can help children is also appropriate and applicable to people who are older, maybe teenagers, adults, old people, whatever your culture or your socio-economic means, or maybe you've got physical disabilities or whatever. These are everything applies to everyone in terms of how reading can improve your well-being. So these are some external benefits and some internal benefits. I'll just read some of the headings. So externally, you can get reading about different characters and how other people go about living their own lives. So you can get some empathy by recognizing yourself in them, and it helps you with social skills. So when you're meeting up with other people in real life, then you can learn from some of the situations that you've read about in books. It helps you to foster relationships because you can talk about the books with other people or in friendship groups, and it helps you, with some confidence and maybe some, social and emotional well-being, building your, self-respect, or maybe seeing other characters in books who are going through similar things to you might make you feel kind of less alone, and maybe give you more confidence in navigating situations that you find yourself in. And that leads on to this navigation of social context. So you can share your feelings, you can express yourself, and by doing that through the medium of a story, or maybe something you've read in a non-fiction book, it maybe helps you get some distance between you and the problem when you're talking about it with other people, because you can say, well, if you're talking about a particular problem that you've got, then you can talk about that problem with other people by saying that you've read a book where a particular character is going through a similar thing. And then internally, the benefits are you get perspective and insight, you can get self-awareness, and you can develop strategies for behaving in different ways, so you can regulate your behavior, because you see how characters in stories have dealt with similar problems or challenges in a particular way, and maybe you can learn from that so that you can react to situations in a similar way in your own real life, or at least try things out to see whether they work. And the other slide is some tips about how to use books and stories in order to support well-being. So at Book Trust, in their research, they asked the teachers to put some tips together, and this is what they came up with, which is not only applicable to children, but it's also something that you can apply in your own adult lives as well. So, for example, seek out recommendations. If you've got a particular challenge or you have a particular issue that you want to learn about, then there are always book lists for things that you can find that recommend stories and non-fiction books that can help you, see things in a different perspective or get other people's views from the page. It can also help you with, regulating how you react to people, maybe teach you things that you can put into practice in your own life. So it's a way of growing emotionally and mentally, and just helping you with social skills in terms of engaging with other people and building relationships. Books as social stories. So these are where places where you can sort of try out, sort of game out, or war game, if you like, certain situations that you might find yourself in, and see how the characters in the book actually, resolve the issues that they come up against. And finally, that there's an opportunity for you to feel that you belong in certain groups that you respond to, maybe a book club, maybe a forum that you belong to, or maybe you're a fan group for a particular author or set of books, and you can get a sense of community from these things that maybe you don't get in other aspects of your life. So here's a media asset that report came up with. It says that reading is a powerful tool for children's well-being, promoting empathy, communication, and sense of belonging. And I'm arguing here that reading is also really good for adults. And so some of the proven benefits of reading, you've got likelihood that if you read, then you're likely to live longer. It promotes empathy, and the way in which you deal with people, your emotional intelligence, and how you build relationships. It helps to keep your brain sharp, so it keeps your cognitive function going. It enhances your vocabulary, you can concentrate better, and you're better at critical thinking and problem solving. And it also reduces levels of depression because you don't feel so alone if you can, align yourself and recognize yourself in some of the characters that you read in the different stories that you engage with. So going back to our archetypes, here's the benefit that each of the people, the archetypes that we talked about earlier, here are some of the benefits that those people can feel. So if you're a casual reader, reading can help you build a habit that you can enjoy alongside all your other activities. Reading for a literary connoisseur, you can help find deeper meaning in your life and more connection. With a bibliophile, reading helps you to get more discipline and create and curate what you're reading by being more intentional about what you read. And for a book dragon, reading helps you to explore your knowledge about things and to share that knowledge and insight with other people that you meet, and maybe or having problems with the connection. I'll keep going. I'm still here. Okay, good. I'm back. Yeah. So sorry about the technology. Yeah. So as I say, we talked about this particular screen, so I'll move on. So here are some solutions for some of the things that you can do if you want to read for pleasure more with each of these different archetypes. So let's take the casual reader first, although they're not in that order in the picture. Casual reader, maybe set yourself the challenge of reading a book a month. So you're giving yourself a deadline to actually finish a book, because if you keep having to go over read the same page over and over again because you've forgotten where you've got to, then that can get a bit challenging, and you might feel that you're not getting very far with your reading. So giving yourself a time limit can be helpful. Maybe if you're a literary connoisseur, you can join a book club that is meaningful to you, and that can be something where you get some social engagement. They might even suggest some other books that you can read that you might enjoy, so you get some social interaction there. If you're a bibliophile, then start to use some reading journals. Maybe you follow themes, maybe you've got particular interests, maybe you're going on holiday somewhere, so you can set yourself the target of reading some books that have been published by writers from that country, for example. And book dragons, maybe to continue to read deeply on particular subjects, but try and expand the range of what you're doing, and maybe write some book reviews, or even participate in writing articles for literary journals, those sorts of things. And then everybody, whatever your archetype or your book persona, you can get into reading on a daily basis, and then trying different formats of books. If you've got a busy lifestyle, it might be that you find it easier to listen to a book on audiobook, or maybe if you're traveling, you might find an e-reader reading ebooks, or maybe even on your phone. You might find that more appealing or convenient in terms of your opportunities to read in different sort of settings in your busy lives, and also to try and track the progress that you're making in those books. So, talking about Jólabókaflóðið, I've already really talked about this in detail, but here are some pictures that you that might that might help. I've got the idea of the Christmas tree being full of books. There's an AI image here of some Yule lads who are some characters who look a bit like Santa Claus coming in on a tidal wave with a pile of new books. There is an old Icelandic saga here in the original manuscript, which you can see in the bottom middle, and then two people who are reading at Christmas, having received their books for Christmas. And then the image in the middle, which seems to have somehow gone through 90 degrees, is I went to the Reykjavik book fair a number of years ago and took some photographs while I was there. And there was this one particular child who, as you can see, climbed up into the frame of the building to read a book that he was interested in. Maybe he bought it at the fair, or maybe it was something that he brought along with him. But he was found a nook for him to read the book. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the catalogue that I mentioned before, which is in print, and it gets sent to everybody in the country. And it's called in Icelandic the Bókatidindi, which translates loosely into English as the book bulletin. And essentially, this catalogue is split into the different categories that you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, which are the table of contents for the catalogue. So you can see it splits into children's books, young adult fiction, poems and plays, art and photography, history, biography, food and drink, scholarly and non-fiction, outdoor activities, and books in other languages, which is something that I've added to a digital version of my of this catalogue. So what I'm doing as Jolabokaflod CIC is I'm replicating this idea of the printed catalogue that gets sent to people in Iceland of all the new books. And clearly in the English language, there are way too many books that are published every year. It's something like, well, in the old days, before self-publishing and AI publishing, it was about 120,000 new titles every year. But because of the explosion in new books that can be written much more easily and cheaply by many more people without having to go through the gatekeepers of literary agents and publishers, that number is even way higher than 120,000 titles a year. So it would be impossible to have a paper catalogue of every single new title written in the English language in the UK, maybe Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, and obviously North America, Canada, and the United States. It would be impossible to have a resource, even if, or a digital resource even, which had a list of every single title. So what I do is I've turned my this idea for a digital catalogue into a resource where people can recommend books that they want to share with other people. And as you'll see from the following slides, I, in return, promote both that person, what they do for a living, a quote about why they like the book, and also, you know, a project or an aspect of your work, or maybe you're an author who's written your own book. And so I promote, like a kind of classified ad, how you can, you know, learn more about what, in this case, Paul is doing or was doing. This is an example from a previous year's catalogue. So he loves this book, Networking by Carol Stone. It gives you some information about the book. Shows you what the cover looks like. So if you see it in a bookshop or online, then you can, you know, find the book or ask for the book if you're going to talk to a bookseller. And then the way that you can find it is that I will put links to. I will set up. I'm in the process of setting up an online book front at bookshop.org. So it'll be available in the UK and the US and hopefully other parts of the world. Simply by going to that, you can see the book in the catalogue, and then you can go to bookshop.org to actually go and purchase the book if you would like to do that. And similarly, on the fiction side, here's a book that was recommended by an author called Derek Farrell, who writes crime fiction. So one of his favorite books is this book, The Kite Runner. And again, there will be a link to how to get hold of the book through bookshop.org. In previous years, it was through, as you can see, through independent bookshops or through Amazon. And what I've done is I've advertised Derek's latest books, which are published by that particular publisher, Fahrenheit Press, and those are the books that at the time he'd had published. So if people were interested, they could go and check him out or his books out, you know, to go and purchase those books if they looked interesting to the reader of the catalogue. So what you can see is developing is an opportunity to find recommendations from people that you might find interesting for your own enjoyment or maybe as Christmas gifts. So over time, this catalogue will grow and grow and grow. It'll get full of recommendations that you can then look at, especially in the period when you're buying your Christmas presents later in the year, and, you know, look at those for recommendations that you might then choose to give to your friends and family. And what I also do is I keep a record of what's, you know, certain celebrities have said are their favorite books. So if, for example, Leonardo DiCaprio had written a, you know, got in contact with me to say what his favorite book was, in this case, he likes The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. I would then, you know, put that into the catalogue and then talk about how, you know, what Leonardo is up to, maybe some of the films that he's in. You know, maybe you could then go and, you know, check out a trailer of his latest film and then go and watch the movie, you know, whatever it is that he would then choose to promote. I've also, the other two on this screen, you've got Mark Zuckerberg, who's obviously the founder and, you know, in charge at Meta, you know, in Facebook. His favorite book is Ender's Game, again, sort of science fiction book. You know, and it's quite interesting that, you know, that he would find it interesting, he's kind of displaying his interest as a kind of nerd, if you like, or a techie in something which is quite technical and science fiction based in terms of fantasy and futurism. And then at the end, you've got Naomi Campbell, who the supermodel, whose favorite book is this self-help book, this kind of spiritual mind, spirit, body book called Ask and It Will Be Given by Esther and Jerry Hicks. So again, it's interesting because essentially, if you're recommending a book, it's saying something about you as a personality and as a character, which is something that other people can get an insight into you as a person in a way that isn't too intrusive. So I will be putting celebrity recommendations into the catalogue as well. So here's a call to action. How can you get involved? How can you maybe use this opportunity to engage more with reading for pleasure? So in terms of the book bulletin, I am encouraging you and asking you, if you find this of interest and you would like to promote some of your own stuff, then I am asking if you would like to take a screenshot of the Google form, which you can see on the screen at the moment by the QR code in the bottom of the page, and essentially that will take you to a Google form where you fill out your name, your LinkedIn profile, and where you are in the world, and then the name of a book, the book title, and the author's name, and the reasons why you love the book, and perhaps why that book has made such an impact on your life. And essentially, as I showed you in the previous examples, what you would like to promote about yourself. So it may be you're an entrepreneur, you have a business, maybe you work for a company and you'd like to promote a product or a service, or maybe you're an author and you'd like to promote one of your own books, or like me, to promote you. Some of the books that you're writing, maybe an old book, or maybe a new book that you've just published, or it might be on an author website. You might like to encourage people to visit your website to have a look at all the books that you've written. So these are the jobs that you can hire Jólabokaflóðið to do for you, or the book bulletin to do for you. We can help you to establish a sustainable reading habit. We can help you make reading part of your mental wellness plan. We can help you with book recommendations. We can help you with meeting like-minded other people, individuals who also love books. We can make you feel like reading is a rewarding activity and not to get too overwhelmed. We can increase your imagination and your creativity around reading. We can reconnect you with who you are beyond your job title. We can help you with tips for choosing books more wisely. We can, help you by promoting stuff about you in the book bulletin. And we can help you find reading a joyful activity when it comes to stories and ideas. So here's the call to action again. Join the Jolabokaflóðið movement by signing up for giving me your recommendations for the book bulletin. I will then add you to a newsletter that will go out weekly, so you get to know what's going on with Jolabokaflod CIC and how you can, engage with reading on a more systematic basis. And then I'd invite you to send the form that you've just filled out to 3 people so that they can, submit their recommendations for the book bulletin. So in doing that, you become like a reading for pleasure ambassador for Jólabókaflóðið. And then when you're talking about what you're reading in your personal lives or your professional networks, then share what you're reading, and have conversations about things. Don't be scared about talking with people about what you're enjoying reading at the moment. And if you do write social media posts about what you're reading, or maybe you're an influencer talking about things on TikTok or on YouTube, then do consider putting the Jólabokaflóðið hashtag so that more people get to hear about this campaign to get people to read for pleasure more than they currently do. So, in summary, here's a kind of recap of what we've talked about. There's a big QR code there which you can take a picture of, and essentially, think about what book you'd like to read next. You can put it in the chat if you want to share it with other people who are on the call. I want to thank you for celebrating with me World Intellectual Property Day. I want to remind you to scan the QR code and fill out the Google form, and just to say, keep on reading, loving, and recommending books. And just lastly, here's a quote I like by Groucho Marx, which kind of fits in with the whole presentation. I must say that I find television very educational. The minute somebody turns it on, I go to the library and read a book. Sort of jokey statement by Groucho Marx. So if anybody, I had a comment from Mike in the chat, and he's suggesting that it would be. I'll just bring on Mike's suggestion so that everybody can see it. Mike says, wouldn't it be a lovely idea to suggest 24 books to give to children throughout Advent? That's a really good idea. And yeah, it's I've run various campaigns in the past which have had a kind of similar kind of approach, but I think, yeah, that would be well worth considering as an activity that people can do. But my ambition with Jolabokaflod CIC is to encourage people to do things that link in with the idea of Jolabokaflod as a way of celebrating books at Christmas time. So if you, Mike, felt that you would like to do that as an activity that you did locally, I noticed that you called yourself the Henley Santa. So maybe you're in the UK in Henley, and you're somebody that you say you're a storyteller and an author. So maybe that's something that you could promote on your own website as a thing to encourage people to engage with books, and maybe it's a way of you sharing some of your own books or your own stories, particularly if you write for children, or it might be if you write for adults, it might be something that you could encourage the people that read your books to buy those books for their kids. So yeah, I mean, my feeling is that it's not something which is, the campaign for Jólabókaflóðið is not something which is simply a top-down thing. What I want to do is to encourage everybody who is a member and a kind of follower to engage with Jólabókaflóðið as an opportunity to do their own thing and to get passionate about campaigns that they would like to run in their own communities. So thanks so much for that question, Mike. If anybody else has got any other questions or any other suggestions, it would be great to hear from you. If not now, or if you're a bit shy, or you have got other things that you're wanting to get on with now, then by all means later on, if you can put it in the comments, or maybe if you are watching this as a video later on, then put your questions or your suggestions in the comments at LinkedIn, at Facebook, or at YouTube, and I will address those in due course after the presentation is over. Just to say finally, thank you so much to everybody for coming and for listening to this presentation and for engaging in the chat. It's really good to see you. For future people watching the video, thank you for watching the video. And thank you for celebrating World Intellectual Property Day with me, and for helping me to launch the digital Jólabókaflóðið resource. Please do fill out that form, as I say, and let's get some books in the catalogue that we can recommend to other people, and let me promote you and your businesses and your enthusiasms and the books that you've written, so that more people can get to hear about what you're up to. So thank you very much. I've been Christopher Norris, the founder of Jolabokaflod CIC, and I look forward to hearing from you and to seeing you again very soon. My objective here is that this is going to be like a regular type of opportunity for people to engage with Jólabókaflóðið. So there'll be another 2 presentations next month, so you're very welcome to come back again, or to recommend to other people in your networks, your family and friends, to come along and share this experience at those times. I will advertise those events very soon. So thank you again, and have a great rest of the day wherever you are watching from. Thanks then, and goodbye, and happy reading.